Hey everyone, welcome to Elevator Pitch Q&A. This is Andy, and I'm excited to be working with you today as we go through a bunch of questions. And I do encourage you not to be shy. If you have a question you would like answered, please go ahead and type it into the chat box, lower left-hand corner of your screen. And while we're at it, as we get settled and get started on the program, go ahead and let me know where you're calling from and something you're excited to learn about today, or why you decided to join the webinar. Just give me a sense of where you are, where you are in your marketing journey, and we're going to jump right into it. So the question I get a lot, and if you've read my book or been following my work for a little while, you know that I talk about two kinds of elevator pitches: the 30-second elevator pitch and a conversational elevator pitch. And I always get a lot of questions anytime I'm doing a talk or anytime I'm doing one of these events. I get a lot of questions along the lines of, so how do I start conversations? How do I get people's eyes not to glaze over? How do I get people interested in what I'm talking about? And so I'm going to spend the first, 5 or 7 minutes talking you through the conversational blueprint. We're going to do a business example, and then we'll do a quick job seeker example to show you kind of how they're similar and different. And I'm using actual elevator pitches that I've developed for people doing that. And so once we get through that, I'm sure that'll generate some questions. So again, if you have questions, please do not save your questions till the end. Go ahead and type them in as you get them. I love taking questions as we go. I like to be really interactive. I'd like this to be helpful for you. But again, so I'm going to start kind of with this conversational blueprint, the framework that I use when we talk about conversations. And then I'll just get into, I've got some questions lined up. But, if you're on the call live and you ask me a question, I'll get to that as quickly as I can. So great. So the conversational blueprint, and the first thing to understand when we talk about the conversational blueprint is that there are two kinds of conversations you can be having. There's kind of an individual conversation, and this is what happens at networking events. You're standing around and you're talking to people, you're in groups of 2 and 3 and 4. You're just kind of mixing and mingling and doing that kind of stuff. That's to me is the individual elevator pitch. That's when you're starting conversations kind of in a one-to-one scenario. The other kind of pitch is a group pitch where you're standing up. You're standing up in front of a group of people, and you have 30 to 40 seconds to introduce yourself. I say introduce yourself, but again, we'll talk today about exactly what you should do when you introduce yourself. So I want to go through the individual part first, because to me that's actually the 95% case, right? If you're going to a networking event and you don't have a 30-second elevator pitch, that's actually okay. I feel like it's more important to be prepared for the individual pitch. And the three things the only three questions you'll ever be asked, and you can get to ask other questions, but they're all a variant of one of these. How's it going? What do you do? And how do you do that? And so I'm using for the example here someone that I've been working with recently who does educational, she does health education kind of thing. And so so I just want to go through kind of what we have her saying and kind of show you how it fits together and how it works together. So how's it going? She says, how's it going? She says, awesome. I just booked a talk for the Mass Nurses Association. And this is the technique I teach. Anytime someone asks you, how's it going, say awesome or fantastic or incredible, and something you just did. And it can be a personal thing. It can be again, if you just signed up a new client or you just booked a new talk, that's a great way of doing it. And a lot of times you'll say that and it'll just fall flat, right? The other person won't respond in any sort of way, and that's fine. Again, we're trying to start a conversation. If they're not starting the conversation, then we'll move on to someone who does want to start a conversation. And I'll remind everyone that if you're in a room of 40 people and you start a conversation, you start a good conversation with 2, 3, or 4 of them, that's actually a pretty good night, right? I mean, we've got to remember that the goal isn't to start a conversation with everyone. The goal is to start conversations with the right people. And I find so many people kind of beating their heads in, I'm having trouble getting the conversation started. If it's tough starting the conversation, just move on to someone else. So you say, awesome, I just booked a talk for the Mass Nurses Association, and someone will say, oh, really? What is it that you do? And, so what is it that you do? Well, I help people prevent and manage diabetes. And this is the 7-word pitch. This is, we finally got this down. She was all over the place when we started working together. She does this and she does that and she does this kind of coaching and that kind of coaching. She's a TV show and all this stuff. But when you boil it down, when I took her through the process of really how to narrow it down into, that is just 7 words. I help people prevent and manage diabetes. And now I'll say that there's a second thing that she can say in that point, right? And so if she's just talking kind of individually to people, then she'd say that. If she notices that she's in front of someone who's in the healthcare, who runs a healthcare facility or something, I offer CEU programs for hospitals and assisted living facilities. And I want to say here that one thing you'll notice about this, and this will be a theme with all the examples that are coming up that we're going to talk about and everything else, my theme is you're going to be very, very, very specific, right? And Prevent and Manage Diabetes, she actually works with chronic diseases. She'll work with anybody with a kind of chronic disease, but diabetes is kind of a hot button today. It's a hot topic with hospitals and assisted living facilities. It's the way she's getting most of her leads. And so she talks about managing diabetes. And as part of that, she'll get other opportunities. And again, the CEU program thing, she makes good money on the CEU programs. Like, that's a really, really good way. She would love to do as many of those as she can, and hospitals bring her in for, a series of talks and all that kind of stuff. And so mentioning something like that is really helpful, right? And does she do more than this? Yes, of course. But we're not talking about everything. We're talking about starting the conversation. And she's getting into some really good conversations around helping people prevent and manage diabetes and offering CEU programs for hospitals and assisted living facilities. And then what you're hoping for is if someone asks, what do you do? And you give this kind of quick thing for CEU programs. Oh, how do you do that? Like, what does that look like? And this is where she goes into one of her client success stories. A nurse attended my prediabetes program. It's actually a really interesting story. It's a healthcare thing, and prediabetes is actually becoming a big problem in the country. And a nurse, who's in healthcare, took the prediabetes assessment and realized that she had prediabetes. And what my client does is she teaches people kind of how to do lifestyle changes to reduce the risk of that. And so this nurse realized that she had this problem brewing, and now that she understands that, she has techniques she can use to reduce that risk. And so again, what we're talking about here, I call this the blueprint because you're kind of setting this up, right? You can't just jump in about the nurse and the CEU program and all that kind of stuff until somebody has given you permission. And what we're looking at here is a way to that permission, right? This is a series of, you get these series of questions. And the great thing about how's it going is that you can start networking with people before they know you're networking, right? You get to an event, you're just kind of hanging out, waiting for the thing to start, whatever it is, and someone says, hey, how's it going? Awesome, I just booked a talk for the Mass Nurses Association. And you'll be amazed at how far that conversation can go. It won't just be about the stuff she does, but, my mom was a nurse, or, my dad's a doctor, or, my friend is doing this, or I heard about that. And there are just a lot of things you can talk about. And anytime you're in a good conversation with someone, that is really helpful. So Rebecca said she's in Gardner. Great to have you. She's polished pitch in general, so it becomes just a natural conversation. Right. So, and more presentations. Great, Rebecca. That's a great place to be. And so this is that kind of thing. This is how we kind of turn it from a stiff formal sort of thing into much more of a natural conversational sort of thing. And so that's, to me, is the conversational pitch, right? You have kind of these three things worked out. And again, this is what I work with people on. I have a lot of online programs. I do individual coaching. That's kind of getting to this. I in some ways I don't like showing examples because you don't need an example. You need yours, right? But a lot of times, sometimes people can look at the example and can kind of make it work for them, and other times they look at it, they're like, Andy, I've still got questions. Like, let's talk about it, and that's fine too. So from the 30-second elevator pitch side, there you actually have 30 to 40 seconds of people's attention, so you can jump in a little bit more than you would in just a conversational arena. But in this case, you have a power question to catch people's attention, a success story to start the conversation, and a call to action to develop the relationship. And so with this client of mine, the power question is many people don't discover they're diabetic until they end up in the hospital. And I did not know this when I started working with her, but apparently it's true that it's the kind of disease that looks like a lot of other things, and until something shuts down or until you have a health thing that's related to this problem, but what you're looking to do in the power question is get people to think about something in terms of you, right? Don't discover they're diabetic until they end up in the hospital. Then she gives a success story, a nurse in my prediabetes class, and you'll notice this is the crossover between the conversational pitch and the 30-second elevator pitch. This story, the success story, and for those of you job seekers, it's your project story, the best project you ever worked on. That story is the key. Because, and I'll talk, I have a couple of examples coming up where people they've worked on their elevator pitch, and I can tell they're working on it really hard, and I'm going to push them just a little bit further to be really, really specific, right? I mean, this client of mine, she's got 20 different programs she can present, I think, and so we picked one for the elevator pitch, right? She's talking about one particular program in the prediabetes class, right? And again, I have a process I take people through to figure out what that is. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking to narrow it down to the thing that really starts the great conversations. And so you give this success story. You talk about a specific client that you helped in a specific way. And the good thing about that is when you talk about a specific person, people who are listening to you can see themselves or the people they know in that specificity, right? So if you just talk in general, nobody really associates themselves with generalities. But if you have a nurse in a prediabetes class, people know nurses, they understand nurses, they kind of know where to find nurses. Like that's a very easy way of understanding that. And then you close your pitch with a great referral for me is an assisted living facility that offers CEU training, right? This is really, and again with her, this looks so simple looking at it, but this is something we had to work out, and it doesn't take that long to work it out, but this is something we kind of came to, like this is her focus. This is what she's trying to get to, hospitals, assisted living facilities. And I will say too that for a while she was saying healthcare facilities, and we didn't, I'm not doing that. It's assisted living facilities, because you know what, if you say assisted living facility, someone who runs a hospital will say, hey, would you do that for a hospital too? And someone who runs, some other sort of facility, a senior center, they'll say, hey, can you do that at a senior center? So when you're specific, people will see themselves in that specificity, right? If you talk about healthcare facilities, you won't get their attention. But if you talk about assisted living facilities, that actually gets people's attention. And I see this all the time across myself and all my clients, that the more specific you can be, the better. So this is what they look like side by side. And you can see that the crossover is here in that success story, right? That when you're doing the conversational pitch, what you're looking to do is to get yourself to the point that you can talk in depth about something that you've done. And again, the mistake that most people make is someone asks, what do you do? And they try to launch into this kind of 30-second elevator pitch that isn't this kind of, so they'll try to launch into their 30-second thing, and it's too early. You just want to give a quick over, you just want to give 7 to 10 words, and then see what questions they ask and kind of take the conversation from there. So I know I'm kind of flying through this. You have questions, again, just type them into the chat box as I'm going. So the next thing I want to take a look just quickly at a job seeker, same kind of thing. This is a woman that she's got a job now, but when I worked with her, she was looking for a job, and again, very scattered. She wasn't really sure. She said she wasn't sure what she wanted to do, but when I asked her the series of questions that I've worked out, it became pretty clear to both her and me what she wanted. And so for job seekers, how's it going? I know when you're looking for a job, it can be hard to feel like anything's going well at all. But also, I just got my resume updated, and see what happens there. People are like, oh, are you looking for a job? And that's a much better conversation than I'm looking for a job, right? How's it going? Oh, I'm terrible. I'm looking for a job, right? It's much better to say, awesome. I'm really on a roll. I just updated my LinkedIn profile. I got an opportunity for an interview coming up. People are like, oh, are you looking for a job? And now they're kind of in a helpful, open state. And so what is it that you do? And this woman, she now says, I run finance operations for nonprofits. And again, she has 25 years of experience. I mean, she's been doing a lot of stuff. But if you look at what she wants to do, if you look at what she was looking for, it's finance operations for nonprofits. And this sounds very specific, but you know what? She actually got a lead. She got a lead like this at a networking event. She said this, and somebody said, you know what? I know a nonprofit that's looking for a finance person. And that's what you're looking for. Like that is exactly what you're looking for. And then for her, let me tell you to do that, let me tell you about this $1 billion company with $700 million in AR, right? I mean, so this company, 70% of its money was not in its bank account. It was still with its customers. And so she runs finance operations by helping companies collect their money. And again, just quickly over on the other side, power question, I enjoy solving big problems. Here's one example. I took over the finance operation for a $1 billion company that's $700 million in AR, and then she talks a little, gives one more sentence on that. And then, my name is her name, and I'm interested in opportunities to run finance operations for nonprofits. And again, would she take a different job? Yeah. I mean, she would, like if it was the right kind of job. But you're going to find more of those right kinds of jobs when you are this specific. And so that's really what we're looking for. So again, so that's the conversational blueprint. When people kind of ask me, so how do I start conversations? This is a way I like looking at it for starting conversations. And and part of this too is just practice, right? Getting out there and talking to people. And I always get the question, I'm an introvert. Like this all sounds too overwhelming. And what I'll say to that is I'm an introvert too. And people really don't believe that about me. But it took a lot for me to understand how to do this. And the introvert thing is, I just hate small talk. And I'll tell you that I don't really do a whole lot of small talk anymore. Once you're get into business networking, once you have a good elevator pitch and start meeting the right people, it's more like hanging out with friends, right? And introverts love that. Introverts love the deeper connections with people, the one-to-one conversations. And so this conversational blueprint really gets you past that small talk very quickly into people that you really want to get to know. And I find, for myself and for the other introverts that I work with, it's such a relief to know that it's not just going. I don't go to that many networking events anymore because I have a network, and I do I'm always meeting new people, but a lot of them come through referrals. And so, the networking is relatively short-lived as long as you're meeting the right people and following up in the right way. So that's kind of how that goes. Great. And so I got another question. I don't want to limit my options. How can I include more in my elevator pitch? And you don't want to include everything in the elevator pitch. And there are a couple of reasons for that. But the first is that nobody's going to get to know you from 30 seconds. Right? There's no way that you can go over your decades worth of experience. There's no way you can do justice to that, right? The example I like to use is when people are dating, right? You don't get married on the first date, right? You have to have a first conversation on the first date. The hope is that the first date leads to a second date, and then other dates, and you get to know each other over time, and over time you kind of forge that relationship. And business networking is similar in that the people you're going to be connecting with, the people that you're going to build trust with, you're going to have to talk to a bunch of times over a time period. And so if someone's awkward to talk to the first time you meet them, it's probably not going to get better over time, right? And that's the thing. I love having awkward conversations now because I know I don't have to worry about that person. If you have an awkward conversation, it doesn't go well, very nice to meet you, I'm going to continue networking, right? And then you go and you meet people, and when you get someone who you can really connect with, and you really talk to them and kind of connect with them, that's where the fun starts to happen, and that's really where the magic is in the conversation. So I really encourage people to focus on the conversations. Look at, and look for people that you enjoy talking to, because again, when you're at a networking event, there might be potential customers in the audience, but there probably aren't. What's really in the audience are people that you can get to know and trust. And then they get to know and trust you. And then when they meet someone who they know and trust, they can introduce them to you. And that's really where the magic of networking works. If you're on my email newsletter, I just posted a video on the Circle of Trust, which is why networking works. And so if you get my emails, just go to my website and look for that, improvandy.com, the video of the Circle of Trust, which is why networking works. And again, it starts with this conversation. You're looking for something that gets you into a conversation. That's where it all starts. All right, so a couple of people did share elevator pitches with me, and so I'm going to look at some of those. So here's Don's. I edited it a little bit. I edited it down a little bit, Don, just to preserve anonymity. But if anyone hears what Don does and wants to get in touch, just feel free to reach out to me, and I can certainly put you in touch. So my name is Don, and I'm a business broker. Earlier this month, I closed a $1 million deal by successfully matching a qualified buyer with the seller, my client. Does anyone know a business owner who has wondered how much their company is worth or mentioned to you that they might be interested in selling? For free broker's opinion of value to any business owner. So Don, this is a pretty good start. And the thing I'm going to push you on a little bit is, anyone, being more specific. Because the $1 million deal thing is good. The qualified buyer and the seller, my client, I feel like there could be more details there. And so obviously, Don, I don't know much about, I know something about your work, but not much about this particular client. But I took kind of a whack at it. And so power question wise, if you're a business owner, you might be sitting on a gold mine. And Don, I don't know whether this is true, right? That I kind of made this story up, but what I encourage people to do is just take the actual client that you're talking about and put in the actual details. So my client was surprised to learn that his business is worth $1 million. Once he learned that, he was eager to sell, and I'm happy to report that I found him a qualified buyer and closed the deal. He can now dedicate his time to teaching leadership to teenagers and spending time with his grandkids. And again, Don, I don't know if that's what this business owner is actually doing. Maybe he's now, starting a new business or whatever. But whatever he's doing, the fact that he was able to sell this thing for $1 million has given him something like that. And it's good to talk about what that specific thing is. And then notice, I don't give your name until the end. And this is a good tip for people, because the reason you put your name at the beginning is that there is no word in the English language that is more beautiful to you than your name, right? And so when people think about connecting with people, they automatically think they should say their name because that's the thing that sounds the best to them. And in fact, your name sounds great to you, but it doesn't mean anything to anyone else. Starting with your name, you don't have that much time to grab people's attention, and so you're better off talking about them than talking about you. And it's the kind of thing, once you've talked about them, then you can say your name, because then they'll be interested in getting in touch with you, right? That's kind of the goal, that you're looking to have them start a conversation with you. And so my name is Don, and if you're wondering what your business is worth, get in touch with me for a free broker's opinion of value. And so Don, a couple of things to keep working on here. The opinion of value, that probably is a specific thing you do, but I might, the value of their business or what they could get if they sold their business, or I might make that a little bit, I wasn't sure whether broker's opinion of value is kind of a legal term that you have to use as you talk about this thing. But I'm not sure. I mean, I own several businesses. I've never heard a broker's opinion of value, so I'm not sure. It might make sense to, so you know what your business is worth. You could say something kind of that simply. And again, the difference here is that we're providing more details, right? Again, I made these details up, but if I was working with Don one-to-one, if he was doing my coaching program, then I would have him talk about that client, and we would turn that actual client into a couple of sentence story like this. And then when you tell, and the good thing about that story is it's your customer. You love telling that story. It's easy to tell, right? Your face lights up because you were successful with them, and they're so happy, and it's a much better way of presenting yourself, right? How do I say things without bragging? Well, this is an actual client. This is somebody he worked with and sold the guy's business for $1 million, right? He found the buyer, like all that's wonderful. I mean, congratulations, Don. That's awesome. And so, and when you can talk like this, that's what really helps. That's what really helps people connect with you. So again, if we just go back to what Don sent me in the change, so he's talking about, does anyone know a business owner? And I like to tighten that kind of stuff up. And again, the $1 million deal, I want to talk a little bit more about, why the guy came to him, why he was looking to get the business evaluated. Did he have to sell, or was he pleasantly surprised? Like what was kind of the story behind that? And again, when the way I like to think about this stuff, the way I work it through is, if you're a business owner, you might be sitting on a gold mine, right? My client was surprised to learn that his business was worth $1 million. Once he learned that, he was eager to sell. And I'm happy to report that I found him a qualified buyer and closed the deal. He can now dedicate his time to teaching leadership to teenagers and spending time with his grandkids. My name is Don, and if you're wondering what your business is worth, get in touch with me for a free broker's opinion of value, right? So Don, I think that's further towards where you want to be going. I'm happy to get some feedback. If you want to give some feedback on that, feel free to type it into the chat box. So that's and again, the thing that's almost certainly true is that you're not being specific enough in your elevator pitch. And I was actually doing a presentation yesterday where this woman looked at me, she kind of grimaced, and she said, "It's so scary." And yes, I agree. It is absolutely scary to limit how you talk about what you do. The reason it's scary is that when we're in elementary school and we're in high school and we're in college, you get praised and you're called smart for making generalizations, right? You have this thing and that, you have a tabby and a Siamese and a something else, and you're like, they're cats. And they're like, yes, they're all cats. Congratulations. You call those cats, right? But if you're talking about a veterinary hospital, right, you don't want to talk about cats. You want to talk about that you handle Siameses or tabbies, or you want to bring that specificity back. And it's the kind of thing we've been trained to think in generalities, and it gets in our way when we're doing the elevator pitch. And so I know it feels scary, but I will tell you that once you come up with the specifics, that it's amazing. It's amazing what it opens up. It's absolutely amazing what it opens up. And it happened to me. I became the elevator pitch coach, and it was the most nerve-wracking thing. It was the most nerve-wracking thing I had done in my business career. And it has opened up so many opportunities for all of my coaching programs. Right? I do more coaching on more areas now than I did back then. But I was a leadership trainer. I was getting nothing as a leadership trainer. But as an elevator pitch coach, I get clients and presentations and all that kind of stuff. And so I've lived through it. I recognize that it's scary, but again, you've been taught to believe that in order to sound smart, you need to generalize. And in an elevator pitch, you're not sounding smart means something different. In an elevator pitch, what you're looking to do is kind of put in people's heads what it is. And again, with Don says he agrees, and that's good. Thanks, Don. I'm glad I'm kind of on the right track. in this way, you're kind of putting in the business owner's head that there may be something he hasn't figured out. Like, maybe he's become successful and doesn't even know it yet, right? And that's a really good place to be. Good. So I got a question. Just have to look up on my phone because I didn't have a chance to print it out. So from Abby. Abby, thanks for sending in the question. We're a new company and working on crafting messaging to explain what we do. Welcome to the club. Congratulations. It sounds like a great opportunity. So the struggle we have is gaining people's attention without sounding like spam. Yep, I absolutely agree. And she then talks about we specialize in software development team augmentation by remote contract. Yes, but that sounds so technical, and most people don't know what it is and assume we're a recruiting firm. Wonderful. So and she goes on, the reality is we don't fit in the typical business model. We link companies with software developers who work remotely but are fully integrated into the local team. And so, Abby, it sounds like your company is kind of a cross between a temporary staffing firm and an outsourcing firm. Like that's kind of the sense that I get from your description. And it's always, I agree that software development team augmentation via remote contract, it's a mouthful. We help you hire software developers might be a better way of going for that because the rest of it. See, that's the kind of thing, like there's something about what you're doing for your clients, right? There's some reason that having a remote programmer is better for them, right? A permanent full-time remote programmer is better for people for some reason. And I think that's the kind of thing that if you talk about, you'll get software companies interested, right? And you could say something simple like, I help companies hire, software developers, right? Well, that wouldn't make it work. That wouldn't be right because then people would just think you're a recruiter. But in a sense, see, the thing I'm confused about here is that you kind of are a recruiter, right? You are finding, I don't know whether you're running these teams, or I don't know if these employees are working for you. Your questions raise a lot of questions in my head, kind of what this thing looks like. And what I would suggest, Abby, and again, I'd be happy to work with you on this. This is what I do. I have a 1-hour coaching program where we could figure this out. It only takes about an hour. So we could figure that out. But what I'll say in this context is that I want you to think about a client success, right? So if you think about kind of someone you're working with that just gets who you are and is really benefiting from it, what is it that they were looking for, right? And they didn't come to you and say, we need software development team augmentation, right? They're saying something like, we work in a remote area and we don't have the right kind of people around, and so we need talent from somewhere else, or they said, you know what, we don't want to manage these people, we want you to manage them. Again, I'm not sure how this thing fits in, but it always goes back, if you go back to kind of a client success story, that can be the toehold for you for getting started on that. And it's not, and there is a way to describe this, right? I haven't yet found an elevator pitch I couldn't find a way to describe, and the kind of thing you're so close to it that it can be difficult. But again, just take a step back, think about the clients that you've worked with and why were they looking for you? What is it that you're doing for them, right? Do you just, do you source candidates and then give them the candidate, but then somehow, do you have a platform that helps them work? Will it make it like they're working together, but they're working remotely? Or, how are you, you say you're not really a temp firm and you say you're not really a recruiting firm, but it feels to me like you're kind of like a combination of the two. You're kind of like a temp firm that does recruiting, but it's not temps, it's permanence, right? There's a way of describing it. And there's a reason you're doing it. And what I'm saying is in the elevator pitch, the reason that you're doing it, what the companies get out of it, will be the thing that'll be interesting because they may not know. I worked software was my previous career, and so I had to hire a lot of software developers. And if you had a reason, and I did work with some offsite teams, but if you had a reason that a offsite team was better for me, like if they were, if you're working in C# and it's just easier to find C# people, somewhere else around the world, whatever it was, if you had come to me with that, I would have been willing to talk to you, but I wasn't really looking to augment my team in any sort of way. I don't know if that makes sense. But Abby, feel free to send feedback as I'm talking if this makes sense, or if I'm missing the point, or if something else comes to mind. So again, great question, and I will say that I work with companies. I did this recently where I worked with somebody in a company to help them with their message, and then I ended up working with the company on kind of their website messaging and all that kind of stuff. Like how do you describe? And they're also a very highly technical team. Like how do we explain this technical thing? And we got it, right? We talked about some of their better clients, and it's really very, very straightforward and simple. And I'm helping them with a lot of their messaging now around doing that, and it's helping them get out to market. So, Abby, great question. Thank you. And I would look forward to learning more about what you're doing. Great. Okay, so we have this next one actually. Abby, thanks. That makes sense. So it's funny because I got a different email. Abby, I don't know if you work with this person. Probably not. So I got someone else tell me, we help companies have their own dedicated virtual offshore team. And so the other thing, one of the reasons I included this example is that if you look at the way I kind of work with elevator pitches, somebody sent me this, right? It said we help companies have their own dedicated virtual offshore team. I'm like, okay, what does this guy do? What does he do? A virtual offshore team, it could be anything, right? I mean, they could be drilling. They could be drilling for oil. They could be, who knows what they're doing, right? And that's part of the problem. Like you're looking for. Thanks, Abby. I appreciate the feedback. So what is this? So I poked around their website, and for those of you who are struggling with who you are or what you do, like if you're kind of trying to figure out how to get a handle on this, I encourage you to go to your website and go to the area where you have testimonials. And I went to this guy's website because he provided his website. I went to his testimonials, and they want to thank them for their outstanding work. They were converting their legal case management system from DOS to Windows, and now this team came in and converted that to a browser-based application, right? Bring them into the 21st century kind of thing. So that makes complete sense to me, right? Like that's what, and it's even, and that's what I'm saying. Like when you talk clients, right? I mean, nobody's running around looking for a virtual offshore team. Like that's not what they're looking for. But people are looking to convert legal case management systems to a browser-based application. And the pushback I'm sure I'll get from him on this is that, well, but we can do more than that, right? It's not just legal case management systems. And to that I would say, absolutely, I'm sure you can. And you know what? People will understand that. If you say you convert legal case management systems from Windows to browser-based applications, they'll say, well, could you do something for healthcare? Well, I'm a management consulting firm. Could you move my management systems into that, right? People will make that leap. People are able to make that leap by themselves. They're not able to make the leap, right? They will not be able to make the leap from this virtual offshore team. They won't make the leap from the virtual offshore team to kind of the fact that you can turn legacy systems into browser-based applications. I mean, that's beautiful. Like there are companies that need that, right? And so I think so when I think about this kind of thing, I really encourage you, like even if you're a solopreneur kind of thing on here, or if you're a job seeker, go look at your resume. If you're a solopreneur, go look at your website, because your message is buried on your website, and part of the work that I do is to kind of pull that out, pull it out for you so you can see it, kind of understanding what the important things are. And this person had 3 different testimonials, and this one was the strongest one, right? This one was the kind of the easiest to turn into something. But and again, looking at it now, I would actually change it to, we convert legacy computer applications, legacy Windows applications to browser-based applications. And it's funny for me thinking of Windows being a legacy application, because for me, when I was doing computers 20 years ago, legacy systems were COBOL systems. It's funny that a Windows system is considered legacy now. But again, that's how the world moves, and that's how it works. And so, and again, I'm talking specifics, right? And it could be that legal case management systems isn't the right specific one, and in that case, I would encourage him to pick a different client, pick what they did for them, and talk about that. But again, the fact that he's an offshore team isn't that interesting. The fact that they can convert legacy systems to browser-based applications is interesting. That's something companies need, right? And when you can be that specific about something in a way that people understand what you're talking about, that's really when this stuff starts to work. Like that's when the elevator pitch. I have tons of people I've worked with that come back and say, it's amazing. I used the new words and I got leads at my first networking event. And obviously I can't guarantee that, but it does happen, right? When you're talking about how you're helping them, when you're talking about how you're helping them with their business, then that really helps. And so the comparison, we have companies have their own dedicated virtual offshore team. Okay, why would I need a dedicated virtual offshore team? Versus we convert legal case management systems from Windows to browser-based applications. right? That's it. And again, look at how specific we're getting, right? And I tell people, I told one of my clients recently, and he's joyful about this every time. I'm in a networking group with him, and every time we talk about elevator pitches, he gleefully says to people, if you think it's too specific, then you're on the right track, because that's what I said to him. If you think it's too specific, then you're on the right track. If you're not concerned that your elevator pitch is just a little bit too specific, then it's not nearly specific enough. That is certainly true. Certainly true. You should feel a little bit uncomfortable initially, but the discomfort fades very quickly once you start getting leads, right? And that's what we're here for. We're here to get leads. All right. The next example I got through email. Please help me provide your feedback on this. Helping organizations save time and increase productivity by going into less paper environment. As you can tell, I have people from around the world. I think this guy's based in India. And same kind of thing. So, I mentioned going to the website, and again, that's the first thing I do with folks. And again, in a minute, I'll talk about how you can, I have a special offer for those of you who are part of my mailing list and on this call and everything, for working with you on this kind of stuff. But the first thing I do is go to people's websites, because there are things, there is gold hidden in those websites. And so if you're wondering what it means, right, you're kind of like, where do I start? Go to your website. Look at the client testimonials. Look at the client testimonial page on your website. And with this one, I went to their website. A less paper environment. Like the paperless office. Sure, we all understand that's where it's coming from. But what does that mean? And so I went to their website, and they have this really cool animated graphic. I can't show you the animation here. I haven't figured out how to do that. But I will show you that what they're talking about is you've got this fax machine all the way over here on the other side of the office. And you got these little footsteps that just kind of walk. Their animation is these footsteps kind of walk from the office in the bottom right corner all the way over to the fax machine and then all the way back. And again, and their thing is they save you time because you don't have to walk to the fax machine anymore. They have an electronic fax thing. And in the U.S., I can't remember the last time I saw an actual fax machine, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are opportunities like this, but maybe where he is, it's more of an opportunity that you can kind of get the fax machine. You can go electronic with the fax machine, and that makes everything better. So in this case, like knowing that, how much time does your team spend walking to the fax machine, right? And if you were taking that a step further, we help companies increase productivity by eliminating trips to the fax machine. And again, I'm working with someone right now who's trying to talk about how his thing is, I help companies grow by 25%. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't, people don't believe you, right? I mean, it was Abby's question about how do we not sound like spam, right? We help you grow 25%. That sounds like spam because there's nothing to that. But we help companies grow by 25% by eliminating trips to the fax machine. Now we're starting to talk about something. I mean, either people are making trips to the fax machine or they aren't. Either people are making trips to the water cooler or they aren't, right? I mean, you can kind of find the right way of talking about it. But when you have that thing, and I'm certain, this company had like a 3 thing. It's documentation, and they had kind of 3 things they talk about. But to get into that, you need to give people kind of a visual of what you're doing, right? What does document management mean? It means you no longer have to walk over to the fax machine. Oh, really? That's an interesting thing to talk about. And again, I don't know if anyone on the call has a actual fax machine anymore in your office. I know in all my offices the faxes are just through email now. But maybe there is a lot of opportunity like that in the U.S. Still, I have no idea. But again, this is the thing we get, and I understand everyone's uncomfortable being this specific. But again, once you are this specific, and once you talk to people this way, the woman that I used earlier who does the pre-diabetes kind of stuff, she is like marveling at what's going on. She's marveling at how many people are talking to her and how many conversations she started. It's just really been amazing. Like when you're clear like this and when you're specific like this, it's amazing the kind of opportunities that open up. And so I got a couple other questions we're going to get to. I want to do a quick thing on kind of what I do so that you know what that is. And then if you have other questions, feel free to type them into the chat box. I have a couple of other things I can go to. But so I have a program called the 1 Hour Elevator Pitch, and everything I've been talking about today, it only takes an hour, right? Everyone, I know people, it used to take me 2 hours, but I've actually gotten the process down to 1 hour now. And here's what it looks like. You fill out a pre-call worksheet, which takes about 5 minutes. It actually should take you about 90 seconds to fill out the worksheet. It's really, and I ask people not to prepare, You know, when you do an elevator pitch call with me, I ask you not to prepare for it except by filling out this worksheet for me. 5 questions, just top of mind, just kind of write down whatever comes to mind first. Very, very easy, nothing hard. Then step 2, we do a 1-hour coaching call. 60 minutes, you and me on the phone or on Skype, or you know, however it is that we work together. And during the first 30 minutes, I have a sequence of questions I go through that I ask you to get to know you, to understand who you are and what you do, and you know, kind of the tone you want for your elevator pitch, and how you want people to think about you, and the kind of work that you do for customers, and all this kind of customers. So that's kind of the first half. I just get you talking. I'd start asking you questions to get you talking, and go through that. And then in the second half, in the second 30 minutes, I write the elevator pitch for you, and I keep you on the call. People are like, look, you know, I let you go, and no, I need you on the call because, you know, at that point I ask people for their honesty, because there's an infinite number of elevator pitches, and I need something that will feel right to you, right? And so I write the call live there as you're there. I talk you through it and write it, and I take your guidance to make sure that we get something that you like. And at the end of that hour, you have a 30-second elevator pitch. You had a couple of examples today of 30-second elevator pitch. You got a 30-second elevator pitch, and you also have the 7-word answer to what you do. How people prevent and manage diabetes, right? That came out of this process for that client of mine. So Rebecca said, "Just give a testimony about the first person you talked about because I know her." Oh, thank you. So she's amazed. She's the difference since she started working with me. Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that feedback. That really, thank you very much for that. She's doing a great job, and it is amazing what's going on with how she's cleaned up how she talks about it. And again, this comes from that. This comes from that 1 hour coaching call. That's what she signed up for, and that's what we've been doing. So again, I spend half an hour getting to know you, half an hour writing your pitch. And by the end of that hour, you've got a full 30-second elevator pitch and a 7-word answer to what do you do. And then step 3, I do a 15-minute follow-up call, right? My instincts are pretty good at this phase, but you never know. You have to take the elevator pitch out into the world and see how it goes. And so for those of you who might be interested in doing this, if you go to improvandy.com/pitch, that is where I'm actually my prices have gone up, and this is the path to the previous price, which will be around for a little bit. But again, I appreciate you being on my newsletters, and appreciate you coming to my presentations, and appreciate that you're working on your elevator pitch. So if you go to improvandy.com/pitch, it's pretty straightforward. It just kind of describes what I just talked through. You'll spend 30 minutes ask questions for 30 minutes, spend 30 minutes developing 2 versions of your elevator pitch. Just click on that Buy Now button, and my processor, my credit card processor, doesn't believe that you're human. I'm not sure why that is, but you have to do that kind of security code thing in the middle. So once you do the security code, not mine, do yours, just continue, and then pull out your credit card, billing information, all that kind of stuff. And again, it's $250. It's an hour, plus the follow-up. And the thing people really love is that by the end of it, you know what you're going to say, right? There's no longer any question. You know exactly what you need to say in any sort of business networking situation. And when you know that, and when you're confident about that, it really makes a change in your networking and all the kind of business that you're doing. So improvandy.com/pitch. And again, I'd be happy to work with any of you. If you have any questions, you can just shoot me an email. You all got emails from the Eventbrite thing, so shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk to you about this, help you in any way that makes sense. I do corporate pitches as well. This is kind of, we're working on an individual pitch, which is important too, but then we can take that into kind of corporate messaging. So you kind of figure out what you say as kind of the person doing the work that you're doing in the organization, but then I can kind of work with the larger organization to do messaging, for the website and for the product sheets that you send out and that kind of stuff. So it's work that I really enjoy doing. All right, so I got a couple more questions. Again, if you have questions, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. I got a good question. I was doing a talk the other day, and I got a great question. How do I explain a gap in my experience? And this was a job seeker, but it's the same. One of the worst elevator pitches I ever heard was this guy who stood up at a networking event. He said, I'm doing a cleaning company. He said, I'm sure by the time I get my first customer, I'll have my insurance situation all settled. And what I like to say to people is this is marketing, not true confessions, right? I mean, you don't have to, you don't want to lie. I mean, you never want to lie in your pitch. And part of, when I work with you, it's definitely that you got to be completely comfortable and happy saying what you're saying, right? Because people will question you about it, and you have to be able to talk about it in a way that makes sense, right? But you never want to give anything that doesn't make sense. And so I didn't. This guy just asked a question, but I had worked with someone who was kind of befuddled by how to talk about why he had left the company, like he had all this stuff tied up in it. And I said, you were ready for bigger opportunities. He's like, yeah, I kind of was, wasn't I? I'm like, yeah, you're just ready for bigger opportunities. And the same thing's true, for Abby, for yourself, right? You guys are spinning around and around. Like we can't describe this. Nobody does this. There's kind of no way of talking about this, but there is. It sounds like you have customers and that you're doing kind of stuff, and that's really the hold. And so you explain gaps in experience and that kind of stuff, gaps in experience, or you haven't been doing this for very long. You don't need to talk about how long. And in fact, like I pull it out when I work with people. If they say they've been in business for 17 years, I make them take that out because it's more important to spend that time. That's wasted time, because you can talk about that during a sales meeting, right? Once you get their attention, you sit down and give them a proposal. You can talk about how long you've been in business, and that can kind of help close the sale for you. But if what you're trying to do is get the sales meeting, how long you've been in business has no bearing on that. All that matters is that you're solving a problem that they recognize in themselves. You're solving a problem they recognize they need solved, right? And so that is the work that's kind of the work that we're doing here. So good. All right. Any other questions? I'll give you like 30 seconds to type in a question if you got a question. Otherwise, I will let you get back to growing your businesses. All right, great, everyone. I don't see any more questions coming in, so thanks very much for being on the call. I love, as you can tell, I love working on this stuff. I'd be happy to, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time or give me a call. And again, thank you for being on the call today. Great working with you. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Happy networking, everyone.